I'm pretty excited about this next speaker. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, has a huge task before them. They are here to represent almost 51% of the global population. They are also going to attempt to break the Skepticon world record for the most use of the word vagina in a presentation. I might have given this person a little head start accidentally yesterday. Look, if you're feeling funny about the word, and some people are, here's a fun fact. Apparently the first time vagina was used in a broadcast capacity was in a 1946 Walt Disney production called The Story of Menstruation. So look, I think if it's okay with 1940s Disney, it's totally okay for us. This speaker has many professional qualifications, but today she would like to be known by the most appropriate qualification for today's topic. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Trish, Hann, woman.
Hi. We'll just get me plugged in and then I'll get going. Okay. All right, so I'll get going. My name's Trish Hann, and I am a woman, and I do feel like that is what qualifies me the most to give this talk. So I would like to take you on a tour through the world of women's woo, that is nonsense health products for women. There's probably more of it than you realise, and I guarantee you it's often weirder than you'd expect. There are the obvious ones which are generally skewed towards women, things like naturopathy, homeopathy, psychics, mediums, and the like. But they generally have more of a female following, but they're not female by design. The ones I want to talk about today, most men here will have never heard of. I reckon a fair few women here might learn something new as well. I'd like to give you a quick bit of background first, just to help you understand why women in particular are targeted by the alternative market. Women have historically been treated quite poorly by the medical establishment. Many of us have experienced severe pain on quite a regular basis, and we're not usually taken as seriously as we should be. Female-specific conditions are usually under-researched, and when new drugs are developed, they're usually tested on males, even though females metabolize pharmaceuticals differently. All of this is hardly surprising when you remember that women were only allowed to practice medicine relatively recently. So, as is the case when there's a gap in the market, businesses will often pop up to fill it, and they're often welcomed with open arms by their target audience. Finally, something for me. Marsh from the Merseyside Skeptic Society and the Good Thinking Society said this, which really resonated with me, and that is that complementary and alternative medicine is often marketed towards women because possibly in women's media, health issues are seen as a lifestyle rather than a science, which I really do think that is the case. Nonsense therapies are usually marketed as being wellness products, and wellness is apparently the preventative medicine corner of the woo market. A few years ago, I had a spa day for my birthday, and it was excellent because I spent the first hour running on a treadmill until my teeth hurt. Then I had a massage, and then I bobbed around in a hot pool for a while. But while I was there, I was offered everything from Reiki to anti-aging bee sting therapy, because apparently, on your birthday, you have to be reminded that aging is a sin. So, the first stop on our journey is another one of these so-called anti-aging treatments, the vampire facial. So what is it? Well, you go to a cosmetic center, and depending on the local laws, either a medically trained cosmetologist or just someone with a centrifuge and a venipuncture set, and one of these, will take some of your blood, spin it in the centrifuge, and then they will inject your face with lidocaine, and then inject the plasma removed from the blood into your skin using this. Apparently, this stimulates collagen production enough to bring on anti-aging effects, something to do with stem cells, I'm sure. Look away now if you are even remotely squeamish. So this is what it looks like when one of the more dramatic practitioners decides to use whole blood rather than just plasma. It gives a much more shocking effect, as you can see. And it usually means that people will put these kind of selfies up on social media, and it's very dramatic, and it gives the effect of exactly that. But does it work? Well, let's start with some before and after photos, which I love because they're so easily staged. The key to a good before and after photo is to take the first one in harsh lighting after a particularly rough night. And the second one with plenty of soft lighting, soft focus, bit of makeup. You can even resort to Photoshop if you want to. Customer testimonials state that their skin felt taut and smooth after the treatment, which isn't surprising because this treatment causes your skin to swell up, which will iron out any wrinkle. Soon after, the swelling subsides, and the reports that I read that weren't on the testimonials on the clinic website said that they'd kind of gone back to normal, which unfortunately in most cases meant that the women would then go back for more because obviously one isn't enough. Some women will have this done every week. Yep. Bizarrely, one of the main selling points of this treatment is that it's natural and chemical-free, except for the local anesthetic. HIV and hepatitis are pretty natural, though, I think. So, a key part of my day job as a radiographer is to judge the risk versus benefit. And I'm looking at the risk of the radiation versus the benefit the patient is going to receive from having that radiation. I enjoy it because it requires some critical thinking and the analysis of what we're about to do. But sadly, when you're dealing with woo, the scales are always pretty unbalanced. So, I've started with some pretty strong nonsense, I think. We've got it's sciencey sounding, it preys on insecurities, and it's somehow chemical-free. But I'm going to give this one a Paltrow rating of 4. It's pretty extreme, right? So what next? Tampons! Mass-produced sterile tampons have been around for about 80 years, but women have been using improvised versions for centuries. There's been a recent movement to ditch the clean, individually packaged tampons that we all know, and to go back to the good old days of shoving anything into your vagina. The first step in this movement is to convince people that the clean, mass-produced tampons that we have are dangerous. They're made of chemicals. You're basically having an intimate relationship with Monsanto every time you use one. Now, I'm not saying that reusable menstrual products are bad, far from it. But anything we can do to safely minimize the amount of reusables that we use and the disposables that we use should be embraced. But just because something is natural doesn't make it safe. Funnel web spiders are natural. So as long as the thing that you're using is clean, non-abrasive, removable, and cleanable, you'll probably be okay. But do you really want to be buying homemade tampons on Etsy? And as much as I love the name Poseidon Sponge, the product is a really bad idea. Now, women have used sponges as both menstrual products and contraceptive products for ages. But the synthetic sponges they've been using can be made to a particular specification and in a very clean environment. Sea sponges, literally from the sea, the bottom of the sea. They're beautiful to look at, sure, but should you really be putting them in your vagina? The structure of sea sponges means that anything can be trapped in the various crevices, waiting to give you an infection. They're also irregularly shaped, which means that when you remove it, you may not have noticed a part has broken off inside of you until a few hours later and you develop some kind of infection. None of that stops all the natural types selling them, though, for extortionate prices. As you can see there, you can pay up to, well, $70, and of course these things do have a limited lifespan. So, the case against natural tampons, we're going to go with pretty impractical. They're very difficult to use. They make a mess. Sustainable, well, not really, because you're getting them from the bottom of the sea. The cost is extortionate, and you could get toxic shock syndrome. But yeah, there's no glyphosate, so good work. So they're ancient. They connect you with Mother Nature. They're somehow chemical-free. They don't pretend to be overly scientific, though, and they don't really prey on bodily insecurities. So I'm giving this one a Paltrow rating of 3. Up next, natural breast enlargement. Not to be confused with surgery or padded bras. So, what is it? Bigger boobs, right? Great. How? Pills, massage, lotion, hypnosis. Why? Because women have low self-esteem. A quick Google search for natural breast enlargement returns thousands of hits. Types and prices vary wildly, as does the quality of the adverts. They'll make all sorts of claims about moisturizing and lymph enhancing and cancer preventing, you name it. Some are lotions, some are pills, some are lotions and pills. And of course, who wouldn't be tempted by the stock photo of a woman wearing a lab coat with a stethoscope around her neck, pointing at a graph? You can also follow YouTube tutorials. They're usually marketing tool for a particular product, though. You can even pay someone in a clinic to do it for you. I'm not going to comment too much on this, as there's currently a lawsuit literally right now going on. If you want to know more about it, you can Google Esther Rocket. I'd recommend it. And if you really want to delve into the bizarre, how about breast enlargement hypnosis by stage hypnotist David Knight? Apparently, it tricks you into thinking that you're going through puberty again, thereby making your breasts grow bigger. I wonder if it also ruins your skin and makes you start a celebrity crush journal. So, if you're willing to pay money and risk burns, rashes, and perverts for some greasy boobs, go for it, girl. We've got sciencey sounding, it's spiritual, it's preying on bodily insecurities, and there are 0 chemicals there. We'll give it a rating of 4 Paltrows. Now, vaginal chiropractic, aka gynecologic visceral manipulation. Wellness blogs and magazines are pretty keen on touting this as a way of getting in tune with your body. And to stay in good health, obviously. But the practitioners themselves claim they can cure all manner of dysfunctions, everything from cancers to dysplasias, all sorts. And every woman has a reason to make an appointment. In fact, one of those reasons given on a clinic website is most women have been touched either in a clinical setting or in a sexual setting. Many of us have never experienced a compassionate and informed witness leading us through a journey of mapping our pelvis from the inside. This is an experience of empowerment that every woman deserves. Which basically translates to, you let your doctor and your boyfriend do it, let us have a go. This clinic lists gynecological visceral manipulation alongside legitimate healthcare, including artificial insemination, miscarriage care. I mean, pretty vulnerable patients are going to be going for this, right? This clinic aims to treat a wide variety of gynecological issues centered around pelvic floor dysfunction. And if you want to learn how to perform these treatments, you can go on a unique 4-day course where you'll practice your techniques on volunteers and other attendees. Of course, this whole thing was invented by a bloke. This bloke. Osteopath Jean-Pierre Baal. Someone else who became quite infamous last year for using vaginal manipulation techniques was another osteopath, Larry Nassar. He was the doctor for the USA gymnastic team for the Olympics, and he sexually assaulted at least 150 women and girls, some as young as 12. He was using osteopathic methods, apparently, and he was using that to claim legitimacy for what he was doing. He was recently sentenced to over 100 years in prison. So, there are legitimate uses for pelvic floor massage, such as specific pathologies like postpartum and perinatal care. Absolutely. And hey, if you want to go and have a massage for a bit of fun, all power to you. But make sure that you are fully consenting for whatever it is that you're about to have done. So it's sciencey sounding, it's spiritual, it preys on insecurities, somehow chemical-free. I mean, I don't know if chiropractors are a chemical So I'm giving this one a rating of 4.5. Next. Oxibustion for breech babies. I'm sure a few mothers in here have probably heard of this one. So what is it? Well, it's using plants to move babies. You burn mugwort on your toes, and because it's Eastern and ancient. Now, breech presentations are a really big deal. Approximately 3% of babies will be breech at their due date, and some will turn naturally or with external help. Most others will have the mothers will have a cesarean section to remove the baby safely. Sometimes they will actually be delivered breech, but that can actually be quite dangerous for mother and baby. That can risk the life of the baby and the life of the mother. All going well for a breech birth, that baby will be in a spica cast, which is a plaster cast with their legs out like that, for the first sort of few weeks of maybe even months of their life. That can really affect the relationship the mother and the baby have in the first few months. So it's a pretty serious business. So we should treat breech babies pretty seriously. Or you could just burn some weeds instead. There's several types of oxibustion, and like all nonsense remedies, for a variety of reasons, you can burn someone on someone or near someone. And some forms of oxibustion are deliberately designed to leave a scar. Thankfully, the method used with pregnant women is just to burn a weird-looking cigar next to your toes. Be careful with your carpets, though. Ranscog says there is no evidence to support the effectiveness of alternative therapies. The college will not endorse any techniques shown to have been until they have shown to be scientifically beneficial. This is exactly the position you'd expect from a medical organisation. Unfortunately, the Australian College of Midwives disagree. They offer courses in exactly these nonsense therapies. They claim that it's because it's what women want. But if women want to lure their babies out with Vegemite, are they going to do training on that as well? I literally cannot think of any reason that we should be using this at all. Not one. One of the biggest issues that I have with it is that babies will often reposition themselves anyway in like the final hours of labor. So maybe the mother has undergone oxibustion, the baby's repositioned itself, and now she's telling everyone how great it was and how they should all be doing it too. Mothers speak to other mothers. There's a community of mothership, and it's fantastic, but it's also a breeding ground for this kind of nonsense. So, and obviously it can lead to that misplaced trust in that product or in the person who recommended it, thereby being a gateway woo. Because oxibustion worked for them, well, their naturopath seems pretty good as well. I'll go along to them. And obviously, it's a very vulnerable time, and I think that we should be protecting our most vulnerable members of society. So, it's ancient, it's spiritual, it's somehow chemical-free. I'm giving it a score of 4 because it seems that everyone does it. Now, vaginal steaming. Cleansing your crotch by squatting over hot water because your vagina is dirty. Ugh. So the idea is you fill a pan with some water, herbs, thoughts and prayers. You then put the pan over a fire or some coals or maybe even a portable burner, perhaps. And then you squat over it for half an hour. You can, while you're squatting there for that time, you could be meditating, you could be wafting some sage around, pulling out some tarot cards, praying, whatever you like. Go for it. There are plenty of products that you can buy with very grandiose sounding names, throne, etc. They're made to sound magical and empowering. Vaginal steaming has been around for years. It's been pretty popular in Africa, Asia, and Central America. In Mozambique, women steam their vaginas to enhance their male partner's sexual pleasure. Whereas in Indonesia and Thailand, they generally use it to recover from childbirth and to maintain their feminine identity, whatever that is. The whole thing is sold as a way of connecting with your body, but there are also plenty of healing and fertility claims being made as well. Well, is it worth it? No. Vaginas clean themselves completely. And if you do have an infection, you'll need antibiotics, not mugwort. And if you didn't have an infection, well, you might have one now, because a vagina is not meant to be steam cleaned. It's not a carpet. I particularly love this quote by Dr. Megan Sneed, an American gynecologist. In short, the vagina is perfect the way it is. The practice of vaginal steaming does nothing more than propagate negative female self-image or the idea that the vagina, if not actively managed, is a dirty or disgusting place, none of which is true. Celebrate beauty, celebrate you. So, the evidence doesn't stack up in favor of vaginal steaming, especially as you can buy very effective home fragrances which don't burn your vulva. We've got ancient, we've got spiritual, we've got praise on bodily insecurities, and we've got no chemicals, 4 Paltrows out of 5. All right, coming up next, yoni eggs. What is it? It's sexual enlightenment with your vagina crystals, because your vagina is broken. So, to begin with, the word yoni is the Sanskrit word for womb or uterus, which straight away shows the ignorance of female anatomy inherent in society, even in feminine circles. The thought of inserting an egg of any size into your uterus is really quite unpleasant. Assuming the originators didn't just consider that there's more to the female anatomy than the bit that holds the baby, we'll give them that grace. Let's move on to the egg part. So apparently, yoni eggs, that is, egg-shaped crystals that you wear in your vagina, have been used for 5,000 years to keep concubines in shape for their emperors. The idea is that you wear the egg inside your vagina, and the constant clamping of your pelvic floor muscles to hold the egg in place will lead to better sex for your partner, your male partner, of course. We know this strategy works because weightlifters just stand with weights in the air for hours and hours on end, and that's what gives them massive biceps, right? Muscle toning is all about contracting and releasing over again. It's the repetition that actually gives you the muscle tone, not clamping down on your pelvic floor for 8 hours straight so your bloody egg doesn't fall out on the bus. And yes, the sellers do recommend that you wear these for hours at a time. So, which egg should you choose? Jade is the most popular choice. In fact, sometimes people call it a jade egg rather than a yoni egg. But wellness merchants will sell you anything, and they'll give you a variety of reasons why you need it. And the crystalline structures of all these eggs mean they have one alarming property in common. They are all porous to varying degrees. Now, jade itself is the least porous of these, but it is still porous and it is still at risk of growing bacteria in all the various crevices on its surface, and therefore it's difficult to properly clean it. Some of the eggs even come deliberately drilled with a hole in the end so that you can use dental floss to remove it. Once you've chosen your egg, it's important to educate yourself on its upkeep. Obviously, any item which is inserted into the vagina needs to be clean, ideally sterile if possible. So as I mentioned, cleaning the egg is essential. Oh, wait, this isn't about cleaning, this is about cleansing. Okay, well, now. Obviously, your egg lives on a silk altar when it's not in use. She's a she, they're always a she. When you first receive your egg, you're supposed to keep her under your pillow for a while so she can attune herself to your natural energies. And that way, when you're using her, she knows what frequency your body is at. Then in between uses, you're supposed to recharge her with positive energy so she absorbs any negative energy from your body to be removed. During a full moon, you can leave her in the moonlight, either in a garden or, if you're an apartment-confined millennial like me, on a windowsill. You can take her to a mountain stream and let the water rush over her and reconnect her with the spirit of Mother Nature. You can burn sage and then waft your egg in the smoke. This is called smudging, apparently. You can give her a sound bath in a Tibetan singing bowl. The resultant frequency will reset the crystal structure and eliminate whatever energy she may have stored while she was being used. And of course, you can just pray at it, her. One of the things I find most offensive about this practice is the whole angle of empowerment that comes from it. You're empowering women by making them feel inferior, telling them they need to change, and that it's for someone else's sexual pleasure. This is disgusting, but also not at all surprising. Last month, oh, sorry, I've gone too far. Let's go back. So, women are bombarded with unhealthy messages from childhood to old age, and how we're not good enough, and fawning over celebrities and telling us how we should be more like them. Some of the worst culprits of this behavior are women. The loudest voices shouting these messages are women like Gwyneth Paltrow, who uses her very privileged platform to spout this nonsense, and for some reason, people listen. Last month, her company was instructed via a lawsuit to refund customers who bought jade eggs or essential oils based on the ridiculous healing claims made on her website. This really abhorrent part of all this is that Goop has been trading for 10 years, and this whole thing doesn't seem to have dented it once. Goop continues to sell these eggs, and instead of having to remove the false health claims, they've just recategorized everything, so they can just call it an ancient modality, which modern day research hasn't caught up with yet, or for your enjoyment. That's pretty predatory behavior, right? So, back to the eggs themselves. Honestly, they don't serve any purpose other than what normal pelvic floor exercises can do. They're also expensive. I'd originally hoped to get a couple to pass around as props, so you can really see what they feel like. But at $40 a pop, I'm not going to do that. Instead, here's something else which was actually banned in America for being too dangerous. So we've got ancient, we've got sciencey sounding, we've got spiritual, it preys on insecurities, it has no chemicals. I'm giving that a rating of 5. So in my opinion, while yoni eggs may not be as directly dangerous as oxibustion or as insidious as vaginal chiropractic, to me, they just represent the sheer gall of these snake oil sellers and show just how seemingly unstoppable this kind of nonsense can be. So what can we do about this predatory behavior? It's unlikely that anyone in this room is going to fall for one of these scams, but think about the other women in your life. Women who may be vulnerable to attacks on their self-esteem or their body image. It's easy to laugh about these things and point out the absurdities, but if someone feels these treatments are going to help them, can you fault them for trying? And once you've crossed the threshold, they're at risk of exploitation. It's up to us as skeptics to educate and attack the purveyors of this nonsense, not the victims of it. We need to stop shaming women for being stupid or for being vain, and we need to dismantle the structures which feed these dangerous attitudes. Take women seriously when we say we're in pain. Stop enforcing toxic stereotypes of gender or sexuality, and give us an equal starting point in society. If you'd like to know more about predatory woo, don't bother following me on Twitter, as all I do is retweet these fine people. Follow them instead, especially Jen Gunter. She is an amazing Canadian gynecologist. She is incredible in her fight against the Paltrows of this world, including Gwyneth Paltrow. Thank you very much for listening.